Welcome back to another edition of Fly Tying for Beginners with Jim Misiura. Today we're going to tie a pretty easy fly, but it's also an essential fly for a dry fly fisherman, and this is the rusty spinner. Now the rusty spinner is actually the mayflies. There is many different species of mayflies that turns the rust color when they become spinners. So it's a good idea to have a few of these in your box. Now the hook that I am using, this is a Lively Legs. This is a size 14, and this is actually a 2 extra long hook. I'm going to use some rusty brown thread. And the other material is this is a really simple fly, and we're going to use some white poly yarn. And this piece of poly yarn, you can see how long it is. This actually came from the pull string on a hoodie. I took the pull string out and took the core out, and that's what you get. You have poly yarn inside. I don't actually tie the hoodies very often, so taking the pull string out isn't a big deal. And lastly, you need some rust colored dubbing. What I'm going to use is actually a rust color hare's mask. I bought a rust color hare's mask some years ago, and that's what I'm using. But if you have a rust color Antron, that would be a good choice also, because the Antron is less water absorbent, so it'll actually help in the flotation. And finally, for the tail, once again, I'm going to use the micro Fibbets or the paintbrush, because that's what micro Fibbets are, is paintbrush. And this one here, Craft Smart, 1 inch, and you get a lot of them on there. This I got from a craft store, but you could probably find something like this. Make sure you look at it and look at it close, that it's actually the polyester Fibbets and not camel hair or something like that, because the camel hair or another animal hair will actually soak up the water, and these polyester Fibbets are not going to soak anything up. So to get started, we're going to put a base of thread down, and we're going to come halfway with that, and then we're going to come back up half of that amount, and that's where we're going to put our wing. Now I have probably a 16-inch piece here, 14 or 16-inch piece here. I'm going to just tie this on. Just going to put maybe the size of a wing, maybe a little longer. You don't want to put 10 inches on each side, but just put a little bit there and put 4 or 5 wraps on there to hold it. Then I'm going to trim off this side, and this one I usually look to see for the size, get it about the right size. And then we're going to wrap in that opposite direction. You could actually do a figure 8 here, but that's going to be secured. Now before I go back, I'm going to stand them up, and the far wing is a little bit longer than the closer one. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim them to size, and basically what I'm going to do is just trim them to the size of the shorter wing. There we go. And that looks just about the right size for our wing. The wing should be about the length of the body. And then I lick my finger here, and I'm just going to twist them a little bit. And that's just going to help to keep them under control. If you've used poly yarn before, you can see there's a couple of them that are sticking right there. that just kind of helps to keep them under control a little bit. Now we're going to go to the tail position. There we go. Now I'm going to take the micro Fibbets. Now there's a couple ways you can do this. I mean, if you really want to get really fancy, you can take a speck of dubbing and dub a little bit and put a small ball of dubbing right there. And then when you go to put your micro Fibbets on, you can put one on each side. And that'll look more, actually look closer to the natural. A lot of times the tails have a tendency, when they die and land, the tails have a tendency to split. But I'm going to go ahead and take, I don't know, about 8 or 10, I guess. I'm not going to split anything. I'm just going to take them and I'm going just to tie them on right in the middle, or right on top. And the reason I'm just doing this is the main reason I want that tail, well, the two reasons, because there's tails even on the dead ones, but this is going to stabilize, and that stiff stiff micro Fibbet tail is going to stabilize and hold that, help hold that fly on the surface. We'll just put a few wraps to secure that. Then we could go ahead and trim that off. And if you touch your wings, just go ahead and give them another little spin there to keep them, kind of keep them in control. Otherwise, if they're splayed out, your wing is gonna, your thread is gonna catch individual pieces of poly yarn. So I'm gonna turn it upside down so I have room to dub. Now I'm going to, when I dub, I'm going to make a very skinny noodle right for the tail. You can see how skinny that is. And then I can make it a little bit thicker as I go away from it. But you still want to stay on the skinny side here. So I'm going to start with this. I'm going to go ahead and put a wrap underneath the tail. And that is actually, what that does, putting the wrap under the tail, it's going to, if for some reason it's tilted down a little bit, that's going to stand it up. But it's also going to give you a nice, that you don't have any threads showing between the tail and your dubbing. There we go. I'm going to put some more on there. Like I said, this is a very simple fly, but it's a very effective one. And another point I wanted to make, if you do tie these, do yourself and the fish a very big favor, especially if you're a catch and release fisherman. Use a barbless hook. This is a barbless hook, or crimp that barb down, because in my experience, I would say at least 80 to 90% of the fish that take a spinner, they get it pretty far in their mouth, because you're fishing them right before dark, and when it's getting dark, they feel the safety, and they eat nonchalantly, and they just gulp them right down. And if you are a catch and release fisherman, you're going to not want to deal with a barbed hook stuck in the back of a fish's throat when it is almost dark out. So if you have a barbless hook, it'll come out much easier. Personally, I don't fish spinners very often because of that reason, that they swallow them too much, and if I have to wait for the spinners to catch some, I'll just catch some another day. I'm not saying that you shouldn't use spinners, just try to do it with to be as fish friendly as possible. There we go. We just wrapped it around, did a little figure 8 around those wings. And then we can take our whip finish, and our whip finish, once again, hook the thread around that camel hump, bring it up. There's the X, push that X to the hook. Give it 3 to 6 turns. Go ahead and tighten that up there. And take your poke and snip cuticle trimmer and trim that thread. We'll put a little bit of head cement on there. But first, since I'm using rabbit hair, you can see there's a couple of hairs sticking out there. I'm just going to take my lighter and just give it a quick over. And that took care of that. Put a little bit of head cement on there. Pretty easy to put head cement on spinners. And now, since it's all done, you could go ahead and take that wing and kind of spread that out to make that the size of the wing that the naturals have. There we go. And here we have a rusty spinner. Hope that you learned something from this video. Hope that you would subscribe to my channel. Please refer me to your friends. Please visit my sponsors. Let them know I sent you. Leave comments, questions, suggestions. If you'd like to purchase any flies from me, go to etsy.com/shop/theflymanjim. And if you don't see it there, send me a message on Etsy, and if you could think of it, I'll be able to tie it up, and we'll figure it out from there. And most of all, thank you very much for watching my videos.